What's up, my fellow small business supporters? I'm Savvy, and today I've got a video about both writing and art for you. Today's video is going to be an AuthorTube video with 5 tips for writers to develop memorable voices for their characters, but as you can see in the background, I am also showing you guys my process for drawing my new YouTube channel icon. If you've noticed, I recently changed the icon on my channel as well as on my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to this pop art style icon because I had so much fun drawing this and I was really happy with how it turned out. Before we dive into today's writing tips, I want to welcome everyone who's new to this channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I release new videos about books, writing, dogs, art, toys, and business. As I mentioned, today's video will cover writing and art. This past Monday, I posted the AuthorTube artist tag where I drew a character from my novel Sculpt Yourself on screen. You can check out that video linked in the cards. I got a lot of positive feedback of people saying they really enjoyed my pop art style, which is why I'm really excited to present this new video to you today. Now, on to 5 tips that you as a writer can use to develop memorable character voice. Tip number 1, free writing. This may sound obvious, but nothing helps me get into a character's head like just writing aimlessly as that character. In my contemporary YA novel, One Final Vinyl, which I'm hoping to release soon, stay tuned for updates on that, one of the things I was most proud of was how strong the main character Emma's voice came through in the first-person perspective. When I started writing One Final Vinyl back in 2016, I was coming off of 4 years that I spent writing mostly screenplays, which meant I not only wrote in third person, but I wrote with a narrator who basically just gave stage directions. I was nervous about starting this book. I wanted to write from the perspective of a very introverted character who struggles to share her emotions with others. If you guys know me, I'm the exact opposite. I'm a relentless extrovert who never knows when to turn on my filter. So what I did was, I took a giant notebook to a coffee shop and I sat down and I just started writing. Whatever thoughts came into my head went down on the paper. It created a stream of consciousness feel, which eventually developed into Emma's snarky internal monologue that she struggles to share with those around her. I free wrote in coffee shops and in restaurants so many times while developing this voice, and eventually her character arc just clicked for me. Tip number 2, do some writing sprints with prompts. So for me, writing sprints are very similar to free writing, except that I like to use prompts rather than just writing aimlessly. I've made a writing tips video about doing writing sprints in the past, which I've also linked up in the cards. I started getting into writing sprints a few years ago when I first started teaching creative writing workshops. To get the kids I was teaching in the flow of writing, I would give them a prompt and set a timer for 3 minutes. I'd tell them that during those 3 minutes, they weren't allowed to stop writing. Even if they had no ideas, they could just write down the phrase, "I have no ideas." They just had to keep thinking and keep writing. Of course, these were not graded, and students never had to share their sprints. The idea was to have a no-pressure way to get your ideas down quickly. When I started preparing to write my first draft of Sculpt Yourself back in 2017, I knew I would have to develop really distinct voices since the novel is told from 3 different first-person perspectives. This is where the writing sprints came in, particularly when I was trying to figure out the character Kelly and what her arc was going to be. I like to look up prompts online, then challenge myself to write them in Kelly's voice. From that, I was able to uncover some of the deeper insecurities that Kelly wasn't ready to show the world. Writing sprints can be really fun, and the internet has endless writing prompts, so I highly recommend them. My third tip for developing memorable character voice is to make aesthetic boards on Pinterest. I've talked about making aesthetic boards in the past as well, but as I'm preparing for the new novel I want to write for NaNoWriMo this year, this is becoming more and more important to me. For me, thinking of the visual aesthetic of a character is as important as figuring out how they talk. In fact, the two can go hand in hand. Knowing a character's voice, to me, involves knowing them inside and out. What they like, what they don't like, what they find relaxing, what they find stressful, what their interests are. Once I know everything about that character, I can go on stream of consciousness type rambles from their perspective, and that will help me determine the rhythm of their voice. Often when I'm stuck on figuring out who a character is at their core, it's helpful to see what colors, objects, room decorations, clothing, and overall images could represent them. My fourth tip is to try writing flashbacks even if they don't make it into the final story. Sometimes when figuring out how a character is going to talk about something, I need to dive deep into where they're coming from in the first place. This often comes from writing flashbacks. Not every flashback scene I write will make it into the final draft or even into the first draft, but it's an important part of my process to write them anyway. And actually, a decent number of the flashbacks I write do make it into the story. Writing flashbacks is how I uncover interesting subplots or elements that I didn't know were there before. This is another place where writing prompts can come into play. You can give yourself a prompt like, what was your character's favorite childhood gift? Or what happened during your character's first relationship? And from there, you can write in their voice about recalling these experiences, and then see how these attributes could inform the way that they behave later in the story. My fifth tip should go without saying, but I think it's important to say it anyway, and that is to have fun, be free, and don't stress about it. The reason I bring this up is that when developing a character's voice, I know I sometimes get stressed out, especially when it feels like I'm getting the voice wrong. Because voice is one of my biggest strengths, I feel like if I fail at the voice, the rest of the story's gonna fail as well. However, that's why I try to do stress-free activities that don't feel so formal. Doing a writing sprint in a journal doesn't feel like I'm creating an official document, especially since I know I'll have to rewrite it just to type it up anyway. Plus, trying these exercises well in advance of when I plan to write the first draft helps me feel confident that I'll be ready to take on that character's voice when the time comes. For example, if I'm planning to write a novel for NaNoWriMo, I don't do these exercises during the month-long challenge itself. I do them months in advance during the preparation phase, so that way when it comes time to crank out 1,000 to 2,000 words every single day, I'm not worried about having a hazy vision of my character clouding my writing process. What tips do you guys have for developing strong and memorable character voice? Did you find these tips helpful? Have you guys ever tried writing sprints, free writing exercises, or any of the other things I talked about today? Please let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see some examples of my character voice in action, please check out my novel Sculpt Yourself, which is linked in the description below. If you want to experience it with some literal voice, check out the audiobook as well, which is recorded by an amazing narrator. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and ring that bell. I will see you guys again on Monday, but in the meantime, don't forget to support small businesses. Happy writing, everyone!